You know, at some point in your life, and usually it's later in your life when you start thinking about doing some estate planning or planning a will. When is it really a good time to do it? Well, today on the show, we brought in Tina Seymour Demerin of Seymour Law Firm, who is also my personal attorney. And we're going to be talking about things that you need to do to organize your life. Good to have you on the show.
Great to be here, Jim. Good to see you.
Well, thank you. Give us a little bit of background about yourself first.
Well, I started out as a registered respiratory therapist working in hospitals, so I was actually the person who helped the families when they transitioned during that end time. I was the person who pulled the ET tube out when we turned the ventilators off. It's a very traumatic moment. There's a lot of emotions involved. So when I went to law school, as I started working as an attorney, I realized that a lot of families don't talk about that end of life decision until it's almost too late, or they never talk about it. And then you have the moment where you're trying to figure out what to do for a loved one and what their wishes would be. My goal is to go out and educate people and talk to them about that conversation. Let's have the conversation. Let's put it on paper. Let's let your family know what your wishes are, and let's make it legal to where they know exactly what to do and they have the authority to do it.
Yeah, I know it was a year or so ago when I came to you, and it was very hard getting my wife to come in because that was not something that she really wanted to have to deal with, but we knew that it was something that needed to be done, and just all the great questions that you ask. And so we're going to talk about today things that you need to do to organize your life. Yeah, so if you would kind of give us a start. I mean, first of all, you need to inventory important documents.
You got to get your stuff together. In the seminars I give, last night I was talking to a group of business people, and I said, if you handed me your cell phone and I called someone at your house, could you give me directions to all of your important papers? First of all, do you know where they are? Do you have them in one spot? Get them organized, get them together in what I call a grab-and-go pack. So if you have to evacuate your house or there's an emergency situation, you can get to them quickly. If you have a house fire, if there's a tornado coming, or you're doing hurricane prep, that's not the first thing on your list. You're looking at food, water, shelter, your family, your loved ones, your pets. But if you have your important papers together, you have documents together that show what your belongings are and making sure that you've inventoried your assets, then you have a good start to recreating and rebuilding once that emergency has passed.
Now, why do you need to get rid of what you don't need? What kind of things?
Well, sometimes keeping it is worse than getting rid of it. There's a certain lifespan for documents, and I have a document retention schedule I give to my clients that I say, these are the federal guidelines and the state guidelines for how long you need to keep things. Tax records, mortgage documents, contracts, different paperwork that may have an original seal or an original signature on it. But holding on to it sometimes will just clutter your house to the point where it's unmanageable. So go through, talk to your accountant, talk to your lawyer, find out what those deadlines are for holding on to the documents. And if you don't need them, get rid of them so you can keep what you actually need to retain and you can keep it organized.
Now, how far back do you need to, I know a lot of people thinking, what about taxes, your tax documents? How far back should you keep those?
Everybody will tell you, will have different dates. I always say hold on to at least 7 years. Because that will give you a good cushion and a good way to recreate your taxes in case you do get audited or you have to worry about something along the lines of the capital gains tax. A lot of people don't know if you buy a house back in the 70s or you build it, you're buying it for a certain price. You sell it later on, you will have capital gains taxes that could incur. One way to help deflect those capital gains taxes is by showing improvements in your house. So hold on to those Lowe's receipts, hold on to those Home Depot receipts, hold on to where you bought paint or you paid someone to come in and improve the house because that can help defray your capital gains expense later on. Some stuff you want to hold on to for a long time, some stuff you may want to hold on to for just a few years.
Okay, and you're talking about storing stuff. What kind of options do you look at for storing items?
Some stuff you can store electronically. If it doesn't have an original signature or a seal on it, receipts you can hold on to electronically, you can scan. There are great scanning options, electronic options. Some things you need to hold on to because it does have that original signature, wills, your trust, your powers of attorney, your contract from when you bought your house, insurance documents. Those you need to store in some place you can reach. A lot of people leave my office and say, okay, we've got to go to the bank and put this in our safety deposit box. That's a great idea. The problem is the will is giving someone the authority to enter the safety deposit box, and you're taking that authority and locking it away in the one spot they can't get to without a court order. So you need to have it somewhere accessible. And I have no problem doing several copies of those originals so you can have one in the safety deposit box. Give one to your kids if you so wish to do so. I can even hold on to an original copy at my office, and I retain those permanently.
Now, let's talk about real quick some estate planning, which at what point in someone's life, I mean, I waited till I was honestly 60 years old before I did mine, because it's just something you try not to think about, but it needs to be done. Is there a point where somebody needs to say, we need to do this?
If you have clothes on your back, you need to have a will. Anyone over the age of 18 needs to have a will or a trust established. And there's different reasons for having a will versus a trust. I was 25 when I made out my first will. Yes, I did it myself. When I went to law school later on, I looked at it and went, wow, I really need to update this.
Wow.
But a lot of people come to me very young, 21 years old, 22 years old, because they're looking at planning. They're starting to save for the future. They're putting money into investments. But they also understand that if something happens to them, something needs to go. They need to have something in place so they can transfer those assets without having to get court permission. Another issue is if you have small children and you don't have a will or a trust, then you're doing them a disservice. You need to have guardianship established. You need to know where those kids are going to go if both you and your husband, or if you're a single parent, if something happens to you. The judge is going to see a person in that courtroom based upon the evidence presented. They're not going to know the personal lives of that person. They're not going to know the personal history. And I actually have a paper I wrote a few months ago that says how to choose a guardian for your child. And there's a set of guidelines. That judge is not going to know your personal values. They're just going to see what's presented in court and what's presented in the evidentiary stage.
Now, real quick, what types of law practice do y'all handle in your office, located on Lemoyne Boulevard in Biloxi?
Yes, I've actually expanded 2 more attorneys. We expanded 2 attorneys last year, and I'm looking to hire 2 more. Actually, currently in the interview stage for that phase. Right now, my specialty areas is business consultation, medical regulatory compliance, probate, estate planning. Jonathan is our criminal side. He does criminal, he does the family law, child support, custody. Dawn Smith, who joined us about 3 months ago, she does bankruptcies and house closings, but she owned a family law practice and a title company. So she's pretty well-rounded to where she could pretty much handle anything.
You have a pretty well-rounded group there.
I'm very proud of the group we have.
Well, I'm happy to have you as my attorney, because I know I'm in good hands. Tina, it's a pleasure, as always.
You.
Again, if you need some more information, and plus, go to their website, go to their Facebook page. They have seminars all the time about different things, certainly something that you could attend to answer your questions from Seymour Law Firm in Biloxi.